In 1945, 2 atomic bombs were dropped on Japan. Their destructive power shocked the whole world. The little boy and fat man in total was 36,000 tons worth of TNT. Now, what if I tell you, 27 years after that, 7 times that destructive power was unleashed on one battle in Vietnam? That was the Battle of Quang Ancient Citadel, 1972. After French imperialism was defeated by Vietnam in Battle of Điện Biên Phủ 1954, they had to sign an agreement called the Geneva Accord. In this agreement, it drew a line called the 17th parallel right above Quang Tri province to divide Vietnam in half. In the north was the Communist Democratic Republic of Vietnam, led by Ho Chi Minh. In the south was the Anti-Communist Republic of Vietnam, led by Ngô Đình Diệm. This line was only temporary because in the agreement it stated that by 1956 the North and South should have held elections on how to reunify the country. But from now on until then, the French need to leave immediately, no fighting was allowed, and no international military support. So everyone at the Geneva Conference thought this was a fair term and accepted to sign the agreement, except for 2. The United States refused to be bound by it, but they promised to respect it. The south of Vietnam also refused to sign it because Ngô Đình Diệm knew that Ho Chi Minh would win any elections by popularity. The accord, however, was signed regardless. Vietnam was divided in half. Now, as France was packing their bags out of Vietnam, America started sending in the south military advisors, technicians, and officers. Although the accord stated that no international military support was allowed, this didn't apply to any countries that didn't sign it. So technically, the south of Vietnam and America was not violating any rules. Fast forward to 1956, no elections happened. The line drawn by the Geneva Accord was basically expired, but the division was still there. So tensions started rising, 2 sides started preparing for war again. But this time, the North wanted to reunify the country, while the Republic of Vietnam and America wanted to stop the spread of communism. The battles were so fierce that they led to another conference called Paris Peace Talk in the same year, 1968. However, after 4 years passed by, in 1972, there was still no peace in Vietnam. If no resolution arrived soon, this now invisible 17th parallel line would divide Vietnam in half forever. So, in March 1972, the People's Liberation Army of the North launched the Easter Offensive, marking the first Battle of Quang Tri. In this battle, the North successfully took back the entire province and 10% of South Vietnam territory. The north of Quang Tri, which was right past the 17th parallel, was now stationed by the People's Army of Vietnam. The South had to retreat. In June, the Republic's Army of Vietnam and the U.S. launched a counteroffensive called Operation Lam Son 72. This was the second battle of Quang Tri. If they can't reclaim the province, 3 following things would happen. The United States would have to withdraw from Vietnam. The North Communist Party will reunify the country under their government. And then, the vulnerable Republic of Vietnam would become just a distant memory of the past. For 81 days and nights, the surrounding area and inside of Quang Tri Ancient Citadel was called a meat grinder. The amount of bombs unleashed here was unimaginable. The amount of weapons America provided for the Republic was astonishing. And above all, the amount of people sacrificed here was devastating. Let's look at some numbers. America and the Republic Army deployed around 150 to 170 aircraft sorties per day, up to 90 missions of B-52 bombers a day. They also had cluster bombs and blockbuster bombs, 16 destroyers and cruisers from the U.S. 7th Fleet, over 300 tanks, and around 20 to 30,000 airborne, marine, and armored troops. In total, this was 328,000 tons of TNT, the equivalent of 7 Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombs combined. While the north of Vietnam gained great control after the first Quang Tri battle, they lost almost all of their inventory and lost around 40,000 soldiers. Although resupplied, now the People's Liberation Army had only around 10 to 15,000 troops. Their main weapons were artilleries, machine guns, rifles, or mortars. They had 0 air force and 0 navy. The North Vietnamese also had the strategic Thạch Hãn River, but it was both a strength and a weakness. This was their main supply line, but this area was also very vulnerable to airstrikes. The battle also happened during raining season, so an area close to the river was very vulnerable to flooding. With this great imbalance in manpower, an average North Vietnamese soldier faced around 100 bombs and 200 artillery shells. 65% of the Liberation Army were just university students. Many have just got admitted to their dream colleges, but they postponed their study to fight for their country. Worse, many young boys were only 16 or 17, volunteered, or even faked their date of birth to join the army. Little did they know they were going into a meat grinder. Every day on average, the Liberation Army lost around 100 men. Every day, new troops arrived to the battlefield to resupply the defense line, but before they were even able to cross the river, shells rained down. The Thạch Hãn River was dyed red. Countless screams for their mother, their sister, and their wives, but at the crack of dawn, there was only silence. Repetitive bombing made it impossible to collect some of the sacrificed soldiers from the battlefield. There, they lie forever within the wall and dirt of the Citadel. For 81 days and nights of hell, there was no pause, no relief, only survival. What the Republic of Vietnam estimated to be 2 weeks turned into a 3-month-long battle. Roughly 10,000 troops from both sides were killed. The exact number remains unidentified because the bombs and shells have made it impossible to identify some of the soldiers. Seeing that the destruction was too great, the Liberation Army had to retreat. On September 16th, the ancient Citadel was recaptured by the Republic of Vietnam. But the Western media called this a Pyrrhic victory, a victory so costly it felt like a defeat. On top of that, 3/4 of Quang was still territories belonged to the North from the Easter Offensive. On January 27, 1973, the Paris Peace Accords was finally signed. This accord stated 2 key factors. The U.S. had to immediately withdraw all military and political involvement from the south of Vietnam. 100,000 North Vietnamese troops can remain within the southern territory they won from the Easter Offensive. Without the U.S. intervene, the fragile Republic of Vietnam quickly fell in 1975. On April 30th, 1975, the 17th parallel disappeared forever. A reunified Vietnam was finally established. Every year now, people from all over Vietnam still come to the ancient citadel to pay tributes to the fallen soldiers. They light incense and drop floating lanterns on the Thạch Hãn River as a way to show their respect. Quang still bears the scar of war today. 82% of the province was contaminated by unexploded ordnance. The local authorities and government, with great support from NGOs and America, have worked tirelessly on post-bomb solution and resolution campaigns for victims of unexploded ordnance and veterans of war. I was greatly inspired to make this video after watching Mưa Đỏ, a movie adaptation of a fiction war novel about this very battle. This year also marks the 80 years of independence in Vietnam, so I think that's my way of joining in the spirit of many other Vietnamese people in celebrating the hard-earned freedom that we have today. Anyway, thank you for watching my video. And this is my first video, so I think that I've made a couple mistakes here and there. So if there's anything that I've gotten wrong, any facts I've gotten wrong, please let me know and please forgive me for that. I will try to refine further for other videos. Thank you so much for watching and let me know where I can improve.